Hello and welcome to Munvo's webinar, Roadmap to Real Time. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Matthew Bell. I'm a senior consultant here at Munvo. You can reach out to me at matthew.bell@munvo.com or one of my colleagues present at the end of this presentation. Munvo is a firm. We've worked with 30 plus organizations related to their inbound strategy or tools. Typically, a client of ours will be somewhere between 350,000 impressions on the low end per month, or can reach up to about 10 million impressions per month on the high end, averaging somewhere around that 1 million mark. This is largely based off each organization having different marketing strategies, whether they're doing more experience or journey-based marketing or goal-based marketing, or whether they're doing more ad impression. And each organization will have a varying amount of different channels, somewhere between 1 to 6, as well as the marketing tool may serve, one or many different pages or touch points on the channel, right? Largely, we've done somewhere around 500 plus inbound journeys, and I mean journeys being a journey across different channels or on one channel, different ways a customer could interact versus different individual campaigns. As a firm, we've tended to partner with best-of-breed solutions, typically when they're smaller technologies, and then we've noticed that being best-of-breed solutions, they're acquired by larger companies. You see this with something like Affinium or Unica that was then bought by IBM, Newlane and Adobe, and Evergage and Salesforce. Today I'm going to talk to you specifically about an inbound roadmap and common pitfalls that we see along the way. It's important to start with a roadmap with our clients. We find it's important to do that because it breaks the project up into different stages, allows an organization to see the different stages that they're going to implement, what the iterative benefit of these stages, allows them to do learnings and improve as they move across these stages. It allows them to shift a lot of their marketing methodology, something from outbound, which they already do, where you're pushing in a message to a customer. They may, open the email, but you largely know that it ended up in their inbox, versus when they move to more an inbound methodology and having to learn what inbound entails. With inbound, you may have X amount of campaigns that are live, and you have to prioritize only one campaign to that customer because they're on a web page at that moment and there's one banner and they're only going to get the most relevant and the most important one in that moment. We also see that customers need a shift in methodology here because they may have like an estimated reach of 10,000 contacts per campaign. Something they would do on the outbound where they estimate the reach and the validity of the campaign. But when it comes to inbound, someone that, was highly, was a perfect candidate for that campaign, they may not interact with the channel during that period, and they may not receive the campaign. Inbound really you have to shift that methodology and learn how to run and kind of work on it as you go and take those learnings. So the first two I'm going to cover here is audience and KPI. These are really around the foundational framework, setting up the system on a reusable data model kind of standpoint, help the organization create a framework that can be used across campaigns. Even though we may have one specific use case or campaign in mind, we want a system that works across all campaigns, that is agnostic, because we want to enable a marketer that they can build these campaigns using the UI and rules and other stages and not have to reuse or kind of build projects around these for IT. IT involvement should be more related towards new functionality, new integrations, new channels, upgrades, all those sweet things, right? Anyway, so within the audience framework, we're going to define the attributes that pertain to a customer, as well as the different experiences the customer can take across the different channels, as well as the different touch points and the different audience levels the customer could be partake in, whether it be authenticated, member, or anonymous, right? The other part of this framework is around the responses, the contact codes, and offer management. Similar to defining the set of attributes that a customer would be part of, we're also going to do the same for offers and define what an offer can be related to, what the link is. If the person clicks on it, it could be what the creative code is for the content management system, etc. We're also going to define what response is. This would be if someone clicks on an image, dismisses an image, converts on it, any kind of interaction they do with that. Or we're going to also define what a contact is, and this could be anytime the marketing tool sends something to the channel, even whether it's not necessarily shown to the customer. We see that in the latter case when the marketing tool decided that an offer was valid, sent it to the tool, but it was on a carousel, was not presented because the customer navigated away or didn't press next, or maybe it was below the fold, being it was below the lower part of the page where the user actually had to scroll to get to that, and they didn't end up scrolling. This is the other half of the audience level where we're trying to define a reusable framework. All these things should be agnostic to campaigns and not specific to a certain marketing goal. Next, we want to help the client define default offers. These are the basic functionalities these are the basic offers, not functionalities. The basic offers are going to be on the website when the marketing tool does not reply. This could be, during a planned upgrade, during maintenance, or it could be an atypical situation where the tool does not reply. Maybe the segmentation is too complex, it's taking too long, or there's too high of a load. This also covers with the marketing tool. The marketing tool will need a default offer when there isn't a campaign that is live, that isn't prioritized for that customer. We still want that customer to see something on the website. We still want them to have content recommended to them or content shown to them. You don't want them to navigate to a page controlled by the tool and be presented with nothing. Default offers become an important stepping stone for an organization because I think main two reasons. First being it's a chance to test out the integrations. You get to see that the responses are rolling in, the contexts are rolling in, etc. You also have these default offers that are always available for the later stages. This becomes important because from day one, you put one sample campaign out there. Not everyone's going to be eligible for that sample campaign. You need something there that is always available just in case of these bad cases, but especially important when you're doing a roadmap and you're developing the functionality. You're not going to have all your campaigns live, and you need something there as a backup. Next, we see organizations move to whitelist offers. This is the first chance at implementing a customer journey. This is when we implement a follow-up or some kind of communication on the inbound channel based off of targeting that's done in the outbound channel. This is especially useful because the organization is already familiar with outbound targeting. They have all the data available. They know how to do this outbound targeting really well. But now they're presenting the offer on the inbound channel. And it's useful there because the organization can start to see that not everyone's going to be available or interact with the channel during the offer validity period. I may have been sent an email. I may have clicked on the email. The organization knows that email is relevant to me because I clicked on it. But if I don't go to the website within 1 or 2 weeks or a month or longer, there's a good chance that communication is no longer valid. And that's not anything wrong with the marketing strategy. It's just that the organization needs to start to make that shift that during a specific week or month or period, that not everyone's going to interact with that channel. And when you do these rule-based offers or these contextual offers, that you may have estimated that it's going to have X amount of reach, but it may not always reach that far. Next, we see organizations move into rule-based offers. This is where we start to see the bread and butter of what the tool is kind of brought in there to do. This is doing segmentation in real time, deciding what is most relevant to the customer at that moment while they're on the channel, and presenting them with that offer. It's usually better than a whitelist offer, because a whitelist offer is something defined, 1, 2, 3 a week earlier and is valid for X amount of days, versus with a rule-based offer, we're running them through that segmentation that moment with the data that's in their profile at that moment, and deciding whether it's still contextually relevant to them. Next is contextual-based offers, or contextual data. At this stage in time, kind of a little bit different than rule-based offers, is we want to see the tool provide data back to we want to see the channel provide data back to the tool. This could be something like, web page views, search terms, patterns, like navigating to one product, then navigating away, and then coming back. They could be like a customer could be looking at a mortgage calculator, then looking at mortgage rates, and then going back to the calculator. It's a good sign that these patterns are contextually relevant, and the customer's more or less telling you what they're interested in that moment. We really want to see an organization have these rules, and more importantly, have these rules based off contextual data, because it builds that two-way conversation with the customer and allows, increases the amount of relevancy you have with the customer when you present a message or experience. We all may be able to do a lot of analytical models on customers. We may say, okay, this customer has a high propensity to do this next. But if they come onto your channel and they start doing a random search for something that isn't, predictable, maybe they're searching for a spouse, maybe they're searching for a kid. You need to take that contextual relevant information and really shift it towards that. And we'll see a higher ROI, a higher success rate with these kind of messagings. Kind of closing out the journey portion I already talked about with whitelisting is triggered messaging. Now, whitelisting is more about using your outbound capabilities to drive conversations on your inbound tool. With the idea that maybe a customer doesn't reach your inbound tool. With triggered messaging, we want to take your inbound data and target a customer on a different inbound channel, or provide them communications on the outbound system. A very common, frequently known use case would be something like abandoned shopping cart. You see that a customer added items to the shopping cart, was almost ready to check out, didn't complete it. We want to follow up with that on an outbound channel and trigger that right away. You can do a lot of use case and journey-based communications when you have both whitelist and triggered messaging, as well as the actual communications with rule and contextual-based offers. But when you talk about journeys, we have experiences where the customer was in a phone queue with an automated system. They clicked on 1 here, a 3 there, a 2 there, and based off that pattern, when the person lands on their inbound system, or sorry, their customer service representative, they now know that pathway meant that they were aggravated because they had to jump through 5 different loops, or maybe they were aggravated because they clicked on 1 before they even heard the rest of the options. You start to have data of the customer presented to you in one area feed into a different area. Lastly, we see clients implementing artificial intelligence. Some organizations try to do this too early, which is a pitfall I'll cover here in a second. But AI allows organizations to take their data and their intuition the marketer did within rules and see what rules applied and what offers were applied to what populations, and all that historical data of about who actually converted or completed the offer, and make recommendations or make weighting scores as a improve upon what the marketer was able to self realize. And I say it's a pitfall for organizations to move to AI too quickly, because they can run into a few issues if they try to enable it very early on. First being, if they try to implement it without trying to build audience or KPIs, is they're going to have all these offers and this data based off X, Y, and Z attributes. But if they change it and now all of a sudden they have A, B, and C attributes, now they have a whole bunch of data that the model learned on that was no longer valid, and that model is no longer valid. Another issue with a tool or an organization trying to implement AI too quickly is that they start learning without having that data back up at all. Like they're trying to implement it on day one, and then they're going through a period of time where there's no data to learn on, which means that there's no confidence, and basically the AI is recommending any offer to any person trying to learn about what works and doesn't work, and then your customers facing an experience where they're being presented material that isn't relevant to them, right? It's very crucial to kind of work through these stages as you go, because they all build on each other. Audience and KPIs are that foundational framework that sets up a constant data model for the other stages. A default offers is that atypical backup offers. Whitelisting and triggered messaging are that journey enablement, where you have that omni-channel experience where you're having outbound and inbound on different channels working towards it, or working as a ecosystem. And then rule-based offers using contextual data is that bread and butter, what the marketing tool or the inbound marketing tool is usually doing, and trying to present the best experience to the customer at that moment while they're on the channel. I've already covered some of these pitfalls, but I'll cover them again here. Some of these are new, some of these I haven't covered. First is the team size and decisional enablement. We really want the organization to start out with a multifaceted team. Someone from the legal department, someone from the data department, someone from the channel. We really want to see every vertical being recognized, because we want to build that foundation, that framework that is agnostic to a campaign, and generalized, that's enabled across all these different channels, across all these different use cases, so that the marketers can be enabled to use the tool later on without having to change that underlying infrastructure, right? So we want to make sure that all our bases are covered. We also want to make sure that there's one person that has the enablement to make the final decision, because that's just the nature of inbound marketing, right? Like, you have many different offers being presented or available within the pool of offers. The customer comes to the channel, they're only going to be presented with one experience or one offer. There's only one banner there. They can only be shown one thing, and ultimately there needs to be a weighting. Like there needs to be one thing that's presented, and there needs to be someone who can do that weighting and decide what priority the tool is going to go down. I've already touched upon this with KPIs and reporting frameworks and making sure that it's reusable and agnostic. I've already touched upon it a little bit about why, but I think this is an important one to call out again. We see that some organizations will implement a tool, have it available, have it live, but every time they go to build a new campaign, they're trying to bring in a new segmentation source. They're trying to implement a new response type or a new contact type. They didn't spend enough time on that initial framework, and they're needing to involve IT in every new campaign, which means that every new campaign requires a lot of budget and a lot of work. Ideally, when we have that reusable framework up front and spend that work up there, the IT involvement is more about new channels, new functionality, working on the next stage with us, right? You don't want to involve them in the day-to-day marketing activities. Next, we see that some organizations get stuck within the whitelist phase, or with just rule-based offers on the profile data, we really want to see an organization move up to that contextual data where they're using the information on the channels providing back to the marketing tool, because that data drives that two-way conversation, allows the customer to tell you what they're interested in at that moment. You may have a high propensity score saying that customer, is about to buy a house, so mortgage is relevant. But if they're on that website today wanting to buy or look at credit card rates, we should be showing them a credit card offer, because that's what they're telling you that they want to see, and that's what you're going to have success showing them. Next, and this is counterproductive to, not even counterproductive, but some organizations don't see how these things can jive together. But with the complexity of a customer profile and the complexity of segmentation, we don't want to overcomplicate the model or what we have presented to the real-time tool. We see some organizations want to include something like transactional data, where they want to segment on the past 10 days and see whether they've spent X amount of dollars. You don't want to do that in real time. That slows down the segmentation. That's overcomplicates what you're doing. It means there's too many attributes. You should be able to summarize that in batch and then provide that to the real-time tool. In a bad case scenario here, we could see that the marketing tool, the segmentation is taking too long, which slows down the channel because the channel is waiting for a reply. That may mean slow load times or visible lag in the channel. If their tool and the marketing channel are not too tightly coupled, maybe that just means that there's a banner that's not being presented or it goes to a default offer too often. We need to see that marketing tool is enabled to make quick decisions, and it's based off of just a snapshot of the customer. These 2 points I'm going to make next are kind of more future problems that we think are going to become more of an issue as time goes on. First is around data privacy and marketing audit frameworks. We see today that most organizations understand the value of having a unified context history, understanding what they present to the customer and when. It's possible for a customer to call into the a support line and say, oh, I was presented with this offer this day, and I've decided I want to convert on that, but I'm no longer seeing that on the website. Can you is it possible for me to still do it? Is it still valid? That's valuable, and that's something that's already done in real time right now. But going forward, we need to not only understand what was being presented to the client or to the customer, but also why. With things like GDPR, with data ethics, we need to present to the customer what we collected on them, why we presented them with something, what data we collected on them in the real time, and what model we put against that in order to decide that offer. Right? There's more obligations that organizations have to their customers to maintain a good reputation with their clients or customers. Another issue we see happening in real time is customer fatigue. Most organizations already understand this on the outbound systems. They understand that they can't just throw 20 emails on the same day to the same person, that if a customer sees 20 emails, they're going to start flagging these as spam or unsubscribe completely to the marketing activities. With rebound systems, we see this really hasn't been reflected yet, but it's going to be more important. We already see some consumer level protections here with things like ad blockers, right? This is a symptom of expansion of how important inbound marketing is going to become. Right now, there's just so many different inbound tools. This can be, your phone, SMS, your Apple Watch. There's just so many more touch points, and touch points are going to get even more popular. We need to make sure that we're doing marketing as more of an experience or a goal or a journey, rather than just trying to show a billion impressions from the customer and then dealing with the customer becoming desensitized to the marketing messages. Munvo decided to partner with Salesforce Interaction Studio formerly Evergage, for a few different reasons. First, we see it as a best-of-breed solution for the customer experience or that goal-based marketing. We see, I would cover that as a pitfall or a future pitfall for organizations, but we see that there's a need in the market space for experience-based marketing, no longer just having a banner and deciding what is the most appropriate message for the customer at that moment. We see there being a need that, this customer is about to, move away from the organization, close their account. It's no longer important just to throw a banner at the top. We now want to push them down a different journey into, talking to a sales rep, getting some retention officers there. It's more about a finesse and not just overshooting banners to the customer. Another thing that the Salesforce Interaction Studio does really well is it focuses on more contextual-based data as well as AI learnings. We see this, when we focus on a few niche rules that the tool can do and the tool can do well, is that it accelerates the implementation in general. We're talking about implementation projects that are taking up to 8 weeks, maybe a little bit longer to implement, rather than some of these other systems that take, a year or longer to implement. Having a tool focus on just those functionalities allows us to accelerate that roadmap and focus on just a few of those functionalities and make sure that the marketing team is enabled to do those, quicker. And, with today's environment of ever-changing marketing tools, it's useful to minimize your investment and make sure that you invest in a tool that you can use quickly and is meeting your marketing goals right away. Now, I do have a couple colleagues here, Chris Stanford and Will Brooks. For any additional questions, collaboration, sales, please feel free to reach out to these resources here. Again, I want to thank you guys all for watching the webinar today. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.